In 2026, Google is launching a new pair of smart glasses. They have partnered with fashion brands. They have rebuilt the software from scratch. And they are asking you to believe this time will be different. Before you decide, you need to know what happened the last time they tried this. Google Glass launched in 2013. It was dead by 2015. It cost the company nearly $900 million. And the people who wore it became so universally hated that the internet gave them a name: glassholes. This is the story of how one of the most ambitious tech products ever built became one of the most embarrassing failures in Silicon Valley history, and why Google is betting it can do it again. To understand why Google Glass failed, you first need to understand what Google thought it was building. It started inside Google X, the company's secretive moonshot division, the same lab that was working on self-driving cars and internet beaming balloons. The team believed they could put a computer on your face and make it invisible. The prototype weighed 8 pounds. That is heavier than a bag of flour strapped to your head. But by 2012, they had trimmed it down enough to show the world. Co-founder Sergey Brin took the stage at Google I/O in Mountain View and unveiled a video that made the audience gasp. People skydiving with glass, and people cycling through city streets. People seeing navigation, messages, and photos float in front of their eyes as they moved through the world. The message was clear. The smartphone was already outdated. The future was hands-free. The future was glass. Time magazine named it one of the best inventions of the year. Celebrities lined up to be photographed wearing it. Prince Charles wore a pair. Oprah Winfrey wore a pair. Sergey Brin showed up to a Diane von Furstenberg fashion show wearing them. Google sent them to the New York Fashion Week runway. The hype was real. The product, it turned out, was not. Google Glass officially went on sale to the public in 2013. The price was $1,500. To put that in perspective, a flagship iPhone at the time cost $199 with a contract. A high-end laptop cost $1,000. And for $1,500, Google was selling you a pair of glasses with a 5-hour battery, a 5-megapixel camera, and a screen so small and dim that half the users could not even see it clearly without spending 10 minutes adjusting the frame to the exact angle of their face. But the price was not even the biggest problem. Before the public launch, Google had run what they called the Explorer program. Instead of quietly testing glass with internal engineers, they handed thousands of units to journalists, tech influencers, and selected Twitter users. The idea was to generate buzz. What they generated instead was a social experiment that nobody asked for. These early adopters wore their $1,500 glasses in public, in restaurants, in bars, on the subway. They walked around with a camera mounted on their face that could be recording at any moment, and there was no way for anyone around them to know whether it was on or off. Bars started banning them. Restaurants put up signs. People confronted glass wearers on the street. A woman in San Francisco had her glass physically ripped off her face by an angry stranger. The internet named these early adopters glassholes, and the name stuck. Google had spent years engineering the hardware. They had spent almost nothing thinking about how human beings would react to a stranger walking into a room with a camera pointed at their face. The failure of Google Glass came down to 3 decisions that fed each other in a loop until there was nothing left to save. The first mistake was price. At $1,500, Google was not selling a consumer product. They were selling a status symbol for tech enthusiasts. But a status symbol only works if the people around you want what you have. By 2014, being seen in Google Glass did not signal wealth or taste. It signaled that you were the kind of person who would wear a camera on your face in public and not think about how it made other people feel. The price excluded mainstream buyers, and the social backlash drove away the early adopters who had already paid. The second mistake was timing. Google was building a product for a world that did not exist yet. In 2013, there were no AI assistants capable of making a heads-up display genuinely useful. There was no ecosystem of apps designed for a tiny screen above your eye. The features Glass offered, navigation, messages, and photos, were all things your phone already did better, faster, and without requiring you to strap a computer to your skull. The technology was not ready. And instead of waiting until it was, Google shipped it anyway. The third mistake was audience. Google marketed Glass as a consumer lifestyle product. But the people who needed it, who genuinely would have found it useful, were not lifestyle consumers. They were surgeons who needed both hands free during operations. They were factory workers who needed real-time instructions without stopping to check a screen. They were logistics workers managing complex supply chains. Google spent 2 years chasing the wrong customer. And by the time they figured out who actually needed the product, the consumer version was already dead. In January 2015, Google announced the end of the Glass Explorer program. The consumer version was discontinued. The product, that had been on the cover of Time magazine, worn by Oprah, and showcased at Fashion Week, was gone in less than 2 years. The loss was approximately $895 million. But here is the part of the story that almost nobody knows. While the consumer version was dying in public, a small team inside Google was quietly rebuilding Glass for a completely different purpose. In 2017, they launched the Glass Enterprise Edition. No Fashion Week runway. No celebrity endorsements. No hype at all. Just a $999 pair of glasses, designed specifically for the factory floor. Boeing used them in their manufacturing facilities and reported a 25% reduction in production time. General Electric reported a 46% drop in warehouse errors. DHL, Volkswagen, and medical startup Augmedix all integrated Glass Enterprise into their operations. The product that the public had rejected became a genuine industrial tool, not because the hardware changed dramatically, but because Google finally found the audience that actually needed it. The Enterprise Edition ran until 2020, when Google shut down the app infrastructure and quietly moved on. But the lessons learned about hardware design, about privacy indicators, about the difference between what technology can do and what people will actually use it for, those lessons did not disappear. They were waiting. In 2025, Meta sold 7 million pairs of Ray-Ban smart glasses. 7 million pairs. In a single year, they tripled their sales. And suddenly, the question was no longer whether people would wear computers on their faces. The question was, who would build the ones they actually wanted? Google watched. And then Google came back. In 2026, the company announced Android XR, a completely new operating system built specifically for smart glasses. They announced partnerships with Warby Parker and Gentle Monster, fashion brands designed to make the glasses look like something a normal person would choose to wear. They announced a mandatory privacy LED that lights up whenever the camera is active, a direct response to every glasshole complaint from 2013. They announced price points between $399 and $599, less than a third of what the original cost, and they announced integration with Gemini, their most advanced AI model. The kind of AI that in 2013 did not exist, the kind that can identify what you are looking at, give you turn-by-turn navigation floating in your field of vision, and remember where you left your keys based on what the camera saw 6 hours ago. Everything that made the original Glass a promise instead of a product, the useful AI, the reasonable price, and the acceptable design, Google now claims to have solved all of it. Here is the question that nobody in Silicon Valley wants to answer directly. When a company fails as completely as Google failed with Glass in 2015, and then tries again 11 years later, is that courage or is that arrogance? The honest answer is that it depends entirely on whether they learned the right lessons. Google Glass did not fail because the idea was wrong. Hands-free computing with AI assistance is not a bad idea. It is almost certainly where personal technology is going. Glass failed because Google tried to sell a prototype to the public at luxury prices, ignored the social implications of putting a camera on everyone's face, and built for an imaginary consumer instead of the real one. The world is different now. The AI exists. The price is lower. The design is better. Meta already proved that people will wear smart glasses if they look right and cost the right amount. But Google has tried this before. They had the first mover advantage in 2013. They had the celebrity endorsements. They had the Time magazine cover, and they still lost nearly $900 million. The business autopsy on Google Glass is not finished yet. It is being written right now. Subscribe to Business Autopsy. Every week, we dissect the decisions behind the biggest corporate failures in history, so you can see them coming before they happen again.